So, hello, welcome to the garage. We're going to get some work done on hammer sticks. And so this is our little helper today. And what we're going to do is we're going to put together some drawers. But really what we want to do is talk about the different joinery types you can use when you're putting together the box for a drawer. We're not going to talk about the bottom, we're not going to talk about the drawer face, but just actually the joints that you can use to kind of put the pieces together. So I got a couple different pieces of wood. We're going to cut down the size and get some work done. A piece of walnut. The only reason I know this is walnut is because someone gave it to me and said, hey, grab some walnut. And then there's these two, which I don't know what they are, but they'll work pretty well. I'm pretty excited about it. So, you want to help? You going to help us? Okay, 4 different types of joints we're going to use. We're going to use rabbet joints to kind of have the two come together. We're going to have half-blind dovetails, full dovetails, and then just regular old pocket hole joinery. So pretty straightforward, pretty fun. We'll get rocking and rolling. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to cut everything to width, ripping it on the bandsaw. That's what I'm going to do now. Now we're going to use this giant thing to cut everything to length. That's called cross-cutting, depending on how the grain goes. But we know how wide we want the drawers to be. Now we're going to make them the right length so they all fit together well. And we're going to use a miter saw to do that. So that's what this is, the miter saw. Sometimes called a chop saw. Okay, so now that we have everything that's the right width, the right length, so see how they're all the same about this way. And they're the right length, so these ones are going to be one side, and they're equal. And then these ones are going to be the other side, so the drawer will look something like this. It doesn't necessarily matter, that means really expensive wood to do this. But the last thing that we got to do, we got to put our kids on the ground because safety first. But you can see that these two are now different widths. And so this one here is a little bit wider than this one here. And so what we want to do is plane them. And so we got a planer, and you just feed it through, and it's going to make them the same width. So you see there's that difference there between the two. There's a couple different ways to do this. You don't necessarily have to do this for what we're doing, but I got a planer, I want to use it, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so now we've got everything that's about the right size. We've got them all the right thickness, and everything's kind of good there. You can see we got these two here. They're about the same thickness. Everything's kind of set up and ready to go. Now what we want to do is actually start assembling. So if you remember, what we're trying to do is figure out just kind of the different ways you can join drawers and kind of put them together. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it. But what I'm making is a box, a drawer box that's got 4 different ways that you can do it. So the first one that we're going to talk about is just a regular old rabbet joint. And so if you're not familiar, a rabbet looks something like this. And so on the end, we've got this cut, and you can see it goes through the whole thing of the board. It's a little bit square, but we want to do that on 2 separate pieces. And so when we do that on the 2 separate pieces, the rabbet joint lets us just kind of put that together. So you can see there's kind of that Z shape that's in there. So the easiest way to cut a rabbet, it's relatively straightforward. What I did is use the bandsaw, just because it made it easy to make really straight cuts. But basically what you want to do is just figure out halfway of your width, and then I just drew a line with a pencil. You can see my pencil line there. And really it's easiest to do it on the end, where you do a line on the end to show your depth this way, and another one this way, and you can just kind of figure out how you need to do it. Then it's real simple on the bandsaw. You just set your fence, and everything's ready to go. So that's how you make a rabbet cut. Pretty simple. To join the rabbet, you can use glue, and then I'm actually going to use a brad nailer just to kind of secure those things together. Not totally necessary for the purposes of what we're doing. It's going to be pretty good, but I'm going to use the brad nailer just to make sure, because when we're pulling on the drawer, we're going to be pulling this way or potentially this way. In both ways, we just want to make sure that that's nice and secure. Glue is really safe, but I'm going to put a couple nails in there just because why not. The next one that we're going to do is going to be even more safe, and this one's going to be a half-blind dovetail. And really the cool thing about half-blind dovetails is that it's a dovetail and you get the strength of that, but you don't see it at the front. And so for this example, we're going to pretend that this is the front of our drawer face. It's You can see for the whole drawer, you don't really see anything. But what we have on the back side is this little hole here. And the hole is trapezoidal like a dovetail. And so what we have on the other side is just a regular old dovetail. You can see I just made a single one just for simplicity's sake. But what we're going to do is you can just draw or drop in the top piece, or the side piece rather, right into the drawer face. And what we get is that we get the safety of the joint, but you don't see that it's there. So this is a very, very safe joint, very strong. I made this really quickly so you can see it's full of gaps. It's really bad, but when it's a good joint, you don't see any gaps there. It's really nice and sharp. I'm really bad at kind of doing the depths here. You can see that in the depths, it's not so straightforward. But the cool part is I'm kind of doing this towards the camera here. But when you're pulling forward, because of the shape of the joint, now we're pulling it kind of this way here, but because of the shape of that joint, it's not going to go anywhere. That wood holds itself really, really tightly. And so it's really nice. That's the strength of the dovetail. And this is kind of nice because you can see how when I pull it, the gaps become even worse than they are to begin with. But you can kind of have that there. So pretty cool, pretty easy to do. Now we've got the two, right? We've got the box joint here, the rabbet joint rather, on this side. We've got the dovetail on this side. And the nice part is at the face, you see neither of them. It's just a pretty clean drawer face. It's a really nice way to do it. I wouldn't recommend, if you're ever doing half-line dovetails, you don't want to do it this way because one, this will pull straight out. But the nice part about half-lines is that you can height it. And so this would be this face here, and this would be the side. Now we can talk about the second to last one here, and that's going to be just a full dovetail. And full dovetails are really great for a lot of things. Drawers might not be one of them. And for this example, this is kind of that same side piece we were using. We're going to turn it this way. You can see that we've got this full hole here, this dovetail. And now I've got another one on this piece. And you can see, you can look down the end that it's kind of trapezoidal. It's a little hard to see, but it's trapezoidal facing this way. And so a kind of big slant here, a big slant here. And so it gets bigger this way. So what we can do is if we put that into the hole there, now because of the direction of that, this would be the drawer face, and when we pull on this, it's not going anywhere. Because that's trapezoidal that way, we can just pull on this all we want. It's very, very strong. So it's a really great joint for drawers, or for maybe the inside of your drawers, because when we pull on this, it's really not going to go anywhere. We're going to get a lot of resistance there. A lot of the way that you put it together is side to side. And so this is a great way. Actually, a lot of the drawers that I've made, the backs I've done with full dovetails like this. I'll do more than one pin, or more than one tail rather, but for the backs of drawers, it's really nice if you can do them quickly. I like to do them. I just kind of like to do dovetails for practice, so I do it that way. Last but not least, what we've got is just a regular old, I totally forgot the name of it. We're going to use the Craig jig to do a pocket hole. That's the name of it. And so pocket holes, I'll try to hold up the drawer here as it's fully assembled. Pocket holes are going to go on the inside, and you're not going to be able to see it super well. But what we're going to do is right up in here, we're going to drill a couple holes that are just going to be really straightforward. The cool thing about pocket holes is that they kind of go in at an angle to the wood, and they kind of hold everything together. You can do them really quick. You can do them with or without the jig. It just makes it super simple. So I'll show you how to do the pocket holes with the Craig jig here. Okay, so this is the Craig jig, and it's really a couple different pieces that are really neat and handy. One of them is this piece that'll just hold the whole piece together. So what you do is you can kind of clamp whatever piece you're going to drill on there, and then on this side there's a couple different holes. And so for me, what I want to do is I just want to make this about the middle of my board. So I'll put it about there. It's really not that important, and that's going to set down. And now what you do is you can set the depth and set everything you're going to do, and then you're going to drill with this big daddy. So this is going to do what's going to drill our pilot hole. It's going to drill the actual hole that the screws are going to go into. So let's put that into my drill, set this in here. And the pocket hole, the Craig jig rather, has these guides on the side for how deep or how thick your piece of wood is. But typically what I do is I just kind of stick the drill bit in there and see, yeah, that looks about right, whatever. And I'll do a couple practice pieces beforehand, but for what we're doing, it's not super important, just for the example's sake, to be totally centered in the wood. You can do a couple screws if you wanted to. Typically I'll do at least 2 in any drawer, but for the purposes of what we're doing, it doesn't necessarily matter. So we're just going to go ahead and drill this. I'll show you what we So now at the end, what we've got is this thing. So this is the hole itself, it's a pocket hole. And you can see that at the very end of the board, there's a hole here, and that's where our screw is going to go. We'll get this out of the way. But the cool part, and I'll try to figure out a way for you to see this, you can kind of tilt this back and you can see that on the inside of this hole, it's totally flat. And so what that gets us is when we put a screw in, it's going to hold it very tight against the other board that it's joining. We can put a little glue on the face if we wanted to, and it'll just join those two pieces together. So super simple, super cool, and a very tight and great joint actually. Okay, and that's really about it. So you can see we've got the whole thing put together now. It's all glued up. I didn't really sand anything because it's just kind of for example's sake and for just the purposes of kind of showing people and kind of looking at the different sides. You can see we've got the two brad nails here, and that's going to help that we're pulling this way kind of towards you on the face here. But those are going to hold that there because they're going this way. Here on this side, we've got the half-blind dovetail, and that's helping us out from there. Over here, we've got the full dovetail. And the nice thing about this is that it's really, really strong, again, kind of pulling towards you. Because of the direction of those tails, it's not going anywhere. It's just going to be super duper strong. The kind of bad part is that you can see that it's kind of these two fronts. You've got this, kind of big tail here. What you can do, if you're actually going to do this, is you can make this a lot less wide if you want. This doesn't have to be so wide. It can be much more narrow. And a lot of really nice furniture and nice, different places that tails are used, drawers and things like that. That's nowhere near that wide. And then last but not least is the pocket hole. So here, you don't see anything on the outside. On the inside, you kind of see this a little bit. We've got that screw and that pocket hole right here. So you can get plugs for that, but they don't really look all that great. But for now, this is pretty cool, pretty easy. Just a nice little way to kind of show the different ways that you can put drawer faces together. My preferred way is the half-blind dovetails, just because I kind of like how they look on the side. These ones are I did this really quickly, so I didn't spend a lot of time making sure it's a good fit, but I just think they look really nice. I do like full dovetails on the back rather as well, just to kind of make it nice in the back. But that's my preferred way. Use whatever way you want. Quickest way is the pocket holes, but you kind of lose a few things with that as well. So that's that. That's how I like it. That's how I'm making drawers. I'm going to go off and do some more. Thanks.